One of the most surprising developments in the Owl House has been the fact that Luz is going to be attending the Boiling Isle School for Magic, Hexside. It shouldn't have been too much of a surprise considering how bad a teacher Ida has been up until this point. So far, the only thing she's actually done to help Luz was take her to the witch's arena to help her get in touch with nature, and even then she had to be blackmailed into doing it. It's disappointing how much of Luz's time she is willing to waste over the course of the summer. So it only makes sense that she would want to go to this school so she could actually learn something. Luz attending Hexside should give her some extra resources to help her figure out magic and how it works for her specifically, but despite this development, I think it will actually be pretty short-lived, and I think that by the end of this season, Luz will either drop out or be kicked out of Hexside, or perhaps the two will line up at the same time. Before we jump into all that, I want to remind you guys that we have our Owl House t-shirts such as Full Metal Alchemists and Witches Before Wizards now on Teespring. We put the link in the description down below. Go check them out. And now, on to our reasons why. First and foremost, this school cannot teach Luz the kind of magic she's actually capable of doing. Training wands exist, of course, so maybe the school will issue one for her, but it would take a lot of fun of how the series is developing so far, as she will no longer need to seek out all these ancient glyphs to perform her own spells. Instead, she'll be able to do magic the boring way, by just drawing a circle in the air and willing it to happen similar to when she body swaps with Ida. Sure, there'd still be a learning curve, but how would that be fun for the audience? I think if the show was planning to give her a wand, they would have just had her find a staff early on in the show, but Ida's made it clear that she's not going to get it until a certain point in her learning, which I think is important to the show's journey. The fact that they focused on her exploring the path of finding glyphs tells me that they want to stretch out this learning experience of finding spells longer than just the 11 episodes we've had so far. We don't see any other students using training wands while at Hexside anyways, so there may actually be some rules against this sort of thing. Wands and staffs are a way to enhance a witch's power, but that would ultimately just be cheating while at school, doing a lot of the work for you. Amity was practicing with the training wand, but I doubt they would let her use that during her exams. With that in mind, Luz isn't going to have any particular way to actually learn spells. The show can correct this, of course. I imagine during her first few adventures there that Luz will be discovering the ways that her personal brand of magic and the magic that they teach at the school might overlap, with some of the text describing how to cast spells giving her hints on how to make her own glyphs off of the top of her head. But there will be a point where this simply isn't enough anymore. At some point, Luz is going to burn out from not actually being able to use the magic they are teaching the others at this school, with a lot of it being intrinsic to their own biology and something she can't even understand since she can't draw a circle in the air. She's going to be losing time sitting in class that could be used looking for glyphs in nature. I think this experience will eventually leave her disillusioned, as would the social issues that she faces. At first, a lot of people are going to be interested in her because she is a human, but once that novelty wears off, she's going to be just the odd one out again, the person who no one can really understand. Willow, Gus, and Amity will always be around, but they had social lives before her and presumably will continue to do so while she is there, and she might not be able to get into the same classes as them. In the end, she will feel very isolated, just like in her old school where she didn't fit in. And this school really isn't all that different from her old one, and in some ways may actually be worse. In the first episode, we saw that Luz never really did well in school. She was passionate about creative projects, but always took them a step too far, and being sent away to conformity summer camp was the result. Ida got away with a lot of crazy antics while attending Hexside, but it looks like things might have changed since then, or she somehow at least avoided detention, which is being handed out pretty easily now. Considering how often Luz got into trouble for seemingly innocent things at her old school and still managed to get into trouble before even becoming a student at this new school, I think that pattern won't change. Luz has more reason to be invested in school now that it's teaching something she is passionate about, but that won't change who she is as a person, someone who doesn't work well trying to color inside of the lines. And this school seems just as focused on conformity as her human school, if not more so. Even witches like Ida found it to be too much to handle, and while she may be even more of a free spirit than Luz, I think a lot of this story is about Luz realizing that she is not meant for traditional paths like schooling. I think it is only a matter of time before Luz finds herself in detention, facing the horrors of the monsters trying to brainwash her, and realizes that she made the wrong decision. She isn't learning magic and having the experience she was hoping to have. By the time she busts out of detention again, she'll probably be prepared to drop out, but she'll probably walk out to find that the principal was already talking to Ida about her expulsion, and Ida was doing her best to try and not let that happen. I imagine the episode will end on a bit of a downer note, but with the promise that things will be okay from Ida, that she may not have a school, but Ida dropped out of school and turned out just fine. Perhaps in an even darker turn, Luz will actually be afraid of that. At first, she loved Ida, but as time goes on, she's realizing that Ida doesn't have her life together. She spends her days digging through human trash and decomposing monster bodies to try and make enough money just to get by. Her distaste for authority figures and the norm have given her a bit of a sad and lonely life, and that might be something that Luz comes to fear as the show progresses. I don't think this is how the show will end, of course. Ida will admit to having made her own mistakes, and Luz will realize that doesn't mean going to school and following the norm is the answer either, but rather that we're supposed to figure out our own path, and it's okay that we don't always get it right. That may just be wishful thinking on my part, though. What do you guys think? Will Luz drop out of Hexside, get kicked out, or do you see her going there full-time like Hogwarts and not seeing Ida so much? Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I'll see you next time.